Tell me quickly, you know, with the success that you had in Mexico and around the world, how big a deal it was to actually first debut with WWE.
Well, it was incredible because, especially because he was against Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio is in Mexico is like a god. You know, I was really famous in Mexico. I think I was the biggest superstar there, but Rey is just like a god in Mexico. So in Mexico it was a really big deal. WWE, Rey Mysterio, and you remember that match, right?
Of course.
Rey Mysterio ended up in the hospital, and it was a big news in Mexico.
Really?
Yeah.
I've heard from people who wrestle in Mexico that the people who are gods from America, the people that are gods there, are Rey and the Undertaker. I've heard the Undertaker could not go anywhere in Mexico.
Yes, that's true.
What is it about the Undertaker's character you think that resonates so much in Mexico?
I think he's been working for years and years, and people just know that, you know, and they respect that. In Mexico, lucha or wrestling it's like a religion. You know? So it's very special in Mexico. It's part of our culture, and I think that's the reason why guys like Undertaker or Rey Mysterio are so big in Mexico.
So have you literally been around it from the moment you were born? Was it just always your surroundings?
Yeah, I grew up in the locker rooms with my grandpa. I'm a third generation, so I saw my grandpa, I saw my dad, and I know everything about this business in Japan and Mexico, and now here in WWE. Here WWE is totally different than anywhere else.
What makes it so different? I mean, we know the styles are much different in ring, but what makes it different besides just the actual in-ring style?
I mean, WWE is like the NBA, the NFL of wrestling. You know, it's like in Mexico we got soap operas. You know, soap operas are really big in Mexico, but everybody wants to be in Hollywood. It's the same for wrestling. Mexican lucha libre is pretty big. You can be really famous and make money in Mexico, but WWE is like the Hollywood for wrestling.
I know that something that also makes you unique, besides being a star in multiple countries before getting here, is also your experience in legit fighting and MMA. How much do you enjoy legit fighting?
Well, when I was doing that, it was great, but I was doing that because of the money. I was getting paid well, and in those days in Japan and Korea and in Brazil, but again, I was just doing that because of the money. Now the money is not so great, especially in Japan. So when those guys from Pride wanted to give me less money than the money they were giving me, I say no more. I'm not gonna fight anymore, and I'm just gonna focus in pro wrestling. And it was a good time because it was a time when WWE called me. So basically that was the reason I stopped doing that.
You winning the Royal Rumble, you're arguably the newest person I recall, at least I recall in recent memory, winning the Royal Rumble and being set up to go to WrestleMania. And I think we could tell you were getting a push, but I mean, this is clearly a really big deal. So you talk about it on camera, and I know that as much as it's in character to say it's my destiny, blah, 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 yeah, it must truly still mean just a lot to you to already be in this situation in the WWE.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Royal Rumble, man, it's everybody knows the meaning of the Royal Rumble, and in Mexico, it's just something incredible because I'm the first Mexican, full-blooded Mexican, who win the Royal Rumble. You know, because we know Rey did it, but
he's a Mexican American.
He's a Mexican American, but I'm the first full-blooded Mexican doing that. So in Mexico, it's just like something really big.
Who's your dream match of who's around and who's available to have today, whether they're in the WWE or not, yeah, but is able to wrestle today? Who would be your dream match?
I think Undertaker. Yeah, you know, I grew up watching Undertaker, and he's like we just said, he's the biggest superstar in WWE.
You obviously grew up, you know, loving Mexican stars. Who are the biggest besides you? I mean, it's said that your dad is the biggest ever. I mean, is your dad the biggest Mexican star there was?
In Mexico, I think it's this guy El Santo. Maybe you heard of him, mm-hmm, and my uncle Mil Máscaras. But of course, my idol was my dad. My idol is my dad. So. But if I need to name someone else, I can say my Uncle Mio.
What was it like coming up here and wrestling without a mask? I mean, it's a big deal in Mexico, as we know, and in a lot of places in the world. And here, we only know you as an unmasked wrestler.
Well, I mean, it was a really big decision. When I took that decision, I knew what I was doing, and in Mexico was like a capital sin. You know, the Mexican media, the Mexican fans, they were really, really angry with me at the beginning. Of course, now they just love me and they're really happy because at the end of everything, the fans, they just want to see you winning, you know. But when I decided to wrestle without the mask, it was a big deal in Mexico. For me, it was just another step, you know, because I totally understand this is sports entertainment, and of course the mask is something incredible. I grew up dreaming with that mask, with that name, but you know, I took my career to the next level.
Why Dos Caras? Why was that always what you wanted to be?
Oh, it's just because my father used that name. My father used that name for over 35 years in Mexico, Japan, and many
So you being
places.
junior was just what you always dreamed of?
Yes, yes.
And why was that? Why did he want it? Why do you know where Dos Caras came from? Like why the two-faced thing was his thing?
Like 40 years ago, there was this guy who was the owner of the biggest wrestling magazine in Mexico, and he always loved to create characters. So he created Mil Máscaras, Tinieblas, Blue Demon, many of the famous wrestlers in Mexico, and he was the one who created that name, Dos Caras, which he was a guy who was sometimes he was a bad guy, sometimes he was a good guy. That was the mystic of that name, and he was the one who came up with that idea, and just my father was the man who give life to that character.
So by being Dos Caras, does it sort of give the character almost a free pass to kind of go back and forth between heel and babyface?
Exactly. That was the original idea, but something happened that the fans in Mexico, they always loved my dad, so because of that, he was a babyface all his entire career.
Well, what about you? For your career in Mexico, were you mostly a babyface?
I was a babyface for over 10 years. And when I came here to the States, they told me, okay, we got this idea for you, this and that, and you're going to be a heel. Can you do it? Of course I can do it.
Well, so how do you like it compared to...
I love it. I don't want to be a babyface never, ever again in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you enjoy it so much?
There's a lot of fun, you know, being a heel. You can really play with the people, with the audience. They're in your hands, you know. You can control them and you can do whatever you want.
I was at, I guess, your first show. Well, no, maybe it wasn't, but maybe since you've been on television, your first show at the Garden, the Bret Hart Appreciation Night was, I think, you'd only been on TV for
Chavo,
2 weeks.
right?
Yeah, and you had a match with Chavo.
Yes.
And I remember being struck by the fact that you'd only been on 2 weeks, but the reception when you got there, I mean, you were really over as a heel already. 2 weeks in, people hated you right away. And it's funny. It's a really interesting character. I think that's one of the things I really like is the idea of this Mexican aristocrat. It's not. It kind of goes against what we know of Ray, who's a Mexican American who's sort of the people's man. You know,
Exactly.
the little guy who everyone can root for. It's sort of the exact opposite. Yes. What did it mean for you to get to take the Sweet Chin music from HBK?
I mean, what can I tell you? You know, his legend, and for the Mexican fans, it's not so important because they know Shawn Michaels, but it's not the same meaning for them than for us. You know, for me, it was just spectacular. You know, and I took Bret Hart's finish in Europe, so it was something incredible.
So you've gotten to really live the dream.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Good luck, man. We're looking forward to seeing how things play out with you.
Thank you, man.